The Hale estate was a palace disguised as a home, vast marble floors that glimmered like frozen lakes, chandeliers dripping crystal light, and gardens manicured with the precision of a king's army. For anyone who entered its gates, it was impossible not to feel the weight of wealth pressing in from every direction. But for Victor Hale, the billionaire who owned it all, the estate was just another gilded cage. At 53, he had tasted every luxury the world could offer: private jets, fleets of supercars, penthouses overlooking the seas of Europe and Asia. His empire stretched across 3 continents. Yet, despite the wealth, Victor carried within him an emptiness, a gnawing dissatisfaction. He had one obsession left: human nature. Victor believed that money was the sharpest mirror of truth. Give someone unlimited wealth, and you would see who they really were. Greed was the one constant, the one truth that never lied. On a cold morning bathed in sunlight, Victor decided to test this belief again, this time on the 23 senior staff who served him daily. Inside the grand hall, the staff lined up nervously, forming a semicircle. Their faces reflected a mix of curiosity and fear, for Victor was unpredictable. Sometimes he was generous, rewarding loyalty with bonuses beyond imagination. Other times, his games of loyalty left people humiliated and dismissed without warning. Gregory, the butler, wore his usual polite smile, though his eyes were sharp with calculation. Marcus, the head chef, fiddled with his hands, already dreaming of what riches might come. David, the chauffeur, kept his respectful mask on, though ambition flickered beneath. And near the end of the line, trying to blend into the shadows, as always, stood Amara, the quiet maid. She was in her late 20s, with warm brown skin and a gaze that rarely met anyone's eyes. Her uniform was pressed neatly, her posture humble, her presence unassuming. Unlike the others, she wasn't whispering or speculating. She simply waited. Victor entered, his Italian suit tailored to perfection, his footsteps echoing like a judge entering a courtroom. Without preamble, he reached into his jacket and revealed a stack of black credit cards. Sleek, metal, gleaming like obsidian under the chandelier light. "These," Victor said, his voice deep and commanding, "are connected to my personal account." "No limits!" The staff gasped, a ripple of shock breaking through their disciplined composure. Eyes widened, smiles faltered into hungry grins. Victor walked slowly along the line, handing out the cards one by one. "Buy whatever you want. Consider it a gift, a bonus, whatever you need to tell yourselves to sleep at night. But know this." He paused, his gaze sweeping over them like a hawk. "I will know who you really are by the choices you make." The silence that followed was thick. Gregory's practiced smile twitched, revealing the greed beneath. Marcus's hands shook as he accepted his card, eyes gleaming. David bowed respectfully, but his grip on the card was too tight, betraying his excitement. When Victor reached Amara, she didn't move. Her hands remained at her sides, her eyes fixed on the polished floor. "Take it," Victor said, holding out the card. She hesitated, her throat tightening. "Sir, I don't think I should. I insist." His tone carried the weight of command. With trembling fingers, Amara accepted the card. She held it delicately, as though it might burn her. Victor studied her reaction longer than he intended. There was no hunger in her eyes, no hidden calculation, only discomfort. That, more than anything, unsettled him. As soon as he left the hall, whispers exploded. "This has to be a trap," Gregory muttered, leaning toward Marcus. "He'll fire anyone who spends too much. Mark my words." "Or not enough," Marcus countered. "You know how he plays his games," David smirked. "The trick is balance. Not too greedy, not too humble." Amara stayed silent, the card heavy in her pocket. She felt the eyes of the others on her, mocking, suspicious. She lowered her head and continued folding linens, as if nothing had happened. That evening, the estate buzzed with excitement. Gregory strutted through the servants' quarters with a brand-new Rolex flashing on his wrist. Marcus bragged about ordering diamond-studded knives from Japan. David whispered on the phone, booking first-class tickets to Monaco. And Amara? She sat alone in her small room, staring at the card lying untouched on her nightstand. The card was heavier than plastic, forged from polished black metal. It gleamed under the moonlight, whispering promises. One swipe and her life could change. Her mother's medications could be paid for. Her brother Jerome's university tuition could be secured. The overdue rent could be cleared. She picked it up, turned it over, felt the weight of temptation. And then, with a trembling sigh, she set it back down. Her whispered words filled the silence of her tiny room. "This is not mine. It will never be mine." Meanwhile, in his study, Victor sat before his computer, tracking the transactions in real time. Every purchase appeared on his screen: Gregory's Rolex, Marcus's knives, David's Monaco trip. Predictable, predictable, predictable. And then, at the bottom of the list, Amara's card, blank, untouched. Victor leaned back, his brow furrowed. Interesting. Jonathan, his aide, hovered nearby. "Perhaps she's planning something bigger, sir." Waiting for the right moment, Victor shook his head slowly, his eyes still fixed on the untouched card. "No, look at her record. Hired 8 months ago. No complaints. No requests. No ambition for promotion. She keeps her head down and works." Jonathan frowned. "So what does that mean?" Victor's lips curved into the faintest trace of intrigue. "It means she's the one to watch." And as the mansion settled into silence, one truth became clear. Amara's refusal had done what billions of dollars never could. It had captured the attention and curiosity of Victor Hale. The next morning, the estate awoke before sunrise, as it always did. The air was crisp, and the marble floors reflected the pale blue glow of dawn. Staff hurried through the halls, their chatter louder than usual. Luxury deliveries were arriving by the hour. Velvet boxes, designer bags, crates of fine wine, and even imported furniture. Victor Hale stood in his study overlooking the commotion. From his window, he watched his staff swarm around their treasures like bees around honey. He glanced at the screen on his desk, more transactions scrolling in. A villa here, a sports car there, endless indulgence, but one card remained silent. Amara's. Victor sipped his coffee, his expression unreadable. It was not the greed of the others that interested him, that he had predicted. What unsettled him was silence. Silence was unpredictable. Silence was dangerous. At that very moment, Amara was already awake, her day beginning like every other. At 4:30 a.m., before most of the estate stirred, she was on her knees polishing the marble floors. Her uniform was neat, her hair pinned back in a simple bun. She worked quietly, every movement careful, precise, but her mind was not quiet. In her pocket was a folded letter, a final notice from her landlord. Rent was overdue again. On her phone, unread messages from her younger brother, Jerome, blinked. "Registration deadline tomorrow. I can defer if you need me to." And then there was her mother, frail and coughing back home, her medications running out. Amara closed her eyes briefly, the weight pressing in on her chest. She could end it all with one swipe. She could save them both. Her gaze flicked toward the black card resting on her nightstand when she'd left her room. Its smooth surface had haunted her dreams. The temptation was unbearable, but still, she refused. She whispered under her breath, as if to remind herself, "If I take what is not mine, I lose who I am." Later that day, the staff gathered in the grand dining hall for breakfast as Victor had ordered. The long oak table was set with silver cutlery, crystal glasses, and a spread of food that could feed a village. Victor entered with his usual air of power. He sat at the head of the table, his gaze sweeping across his staff. "Well," he said, his voice echoing, "tell me, what have you bought?" One by one they came forward, eager to boast. "I bought a villa in Spain," said Gregory, the butler, his chest puffed with pride. "A diamond watch," Marcus grinned, rolling up his sleeve to flash the glittering prize. "First-class tickets to Monaco," David added smugly. Their words filled the room with excitement and envy. Then Victor's eyes landed on Amara. "And you?" he asked, his voice lowering slightly. Amara's heart raced. She felt the weight of every gaze on her, mocking, expectant. She drew in a breath, steadying herself. "I bought nothing, sir." The room erupted in whispers. "What? She didn't spend a cent?" "She's either a fool or pretending to be holy." Victor leaned forward, his expression sharpening. "Nothing?" She nodded, her hands folded in front of her. "Yes, sir." "I did not use the card? Why not?" His tone carried both curiosity and command. Amara swallowed hard, but kept her voice steady. "Because it is not mine to use. Wealth given without earning. It belongs to no one. I would rather work for what I have." Her words hung heavy in the air. The other servants scoffed under their breath. Gregory smirked. Marcus rolled his eyes, but Victor stared at her as if she had just spoken in a language he had never heard before. For years he had believed everyone had a price. But here was a woman, poor, struggling, with every reason to say yes, and she had said no. That evening, Victor called his aide Jonathan into his study. "She didn't spend a single cent," Victor said, his voice low. Jonathan raised a brow. "Perhaps she's cautious. Waiting for the right moment?" "No." Victor shook his head slowly. It wasn't fear. It was conviction. Jonathan hesitated. "Then what does she want, sir?" Victor stared into the fire burning in the hearth. "That's what I need to find out." Meanwhile, in her small room, Amara sat on the edge of her narrow bed. She held the card in her hands again, her fingers trembling. She thought of her mother's cough, of Jerome's education slipping away, of the landlord's threats. Tears stung her eyes. She could fix everything. One swipe, her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, her thumb hovered over the raised numbers, but then she dropped it back onto the nightstand, her voice breaking as she whispered, "No. If I lose myself, none of it matters." She blew out the candle and curled up under her thin blanket. Her heart heavy, but her conscience clean. Victor didn't sleep that night. From his study window, he saw Amara walking through the courtyard early the next morning, helping the groundskeeper's little daughter with her school bag. He saw her smile softly at the child, kneeling to tie her shoelace before sending her off. It was such a simple act, so ordinary, and yet it gripped Victor in a way he couldn't explain. For the first time in decades, the billionaire who thought he understood everything felt shaken by something he couldn't buy. The estate was no longer the same. What once had been a quiet palace of routine had turned into a marketplace of greed. Servants paraded around in silk suits, expensive perfumes lingered in the halls, and the sound of luxury deliveries arriving every few hours became background noise. But there was one person who remained untouched by it all. Amara. Every morning she swept the marble floors. Every afternoon she served tea with steady hands. Every night she retreated to her small room, her world as simple as it had always been. And the others began to notice. "She's pretending," Marcus whispered one morning in the servants' quarters, his diamond-studded watch catching the light. "She's acting righteous," Gregory sneered, "trying to show she's better than us." "Or maybe," David said slowly, his lips curling into a smirk. "Maybe she's plotting something. You know how people like her are, quiet until they stab you in the back." The whispers grew louder with each passing day. Envy gnawed at them like rats in the walls. To them, Amara's refusal wasn't humility, it was an insult. By not spending, she made their indulgence look shameful. That afternoon, during lunch, Victor entered the servants' dining room unexpectedly. The chatter died instantly. He stood tall, his piercing eyes sweeping over them. "I want to hear from each of you again," he declared. "What have you done with what I gave you?" One by one they boasted once more. Their voices were eager, desperate even, as if proving their worth through their purchases. Then Victor's gaze turned to Amara. The room held its breath. Amara bowed her head slightly. "I have not used the card, sir." Gasps, snickers, murmurs. Victor tilted his head. "Still?" "Yes, sir." "Why?" His voice was sharp this time, cutting through the silence. Amara raised her eyes just enough to meet his. Her voice trembled, but her words were steady. Because what does not belong to me cannot heal the wounds of my life. Only my own labor, my own honesty, can do that. The servants scoffed openly now. She's lying. Marcus muttered loudly enough for all to hear. She just doesn't know how to use it, Gregory added. Maybe she's waiting for a bigger chance, David sneered. Victor's eyes flickered toward them briefly, silencing them with a single glance. But inside something stirred, her words. They cut deeper than he expected. That evening, Victor summoned Amara to his private study. She entered cautiously, her hands folded before her, the black card tucked safely in her pocket. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, the firelight painting his face in shadows. "Do you know," he said slowly, "that with that card you could pay for anything? A mansion, a hospital, even an entire university?" Amara's throat tightened. Images of her mother gasping for air, of Jerome begging to finish his studies, flashed before her. Her chest ached. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "And yet you choose not to." She nodded. "Yes, sir." Victor's eyes narrowed. "What if I told you refusing my gift is an insult?" Amara's breath caught. "I meant no disrespect. I cannot accept what I did not earn." Her voice cracked on the last word. She lowered her gaze, ashamed of her trembling. For a long moment, Victor said nothing. He studied her, as if searching for cracks in her armor. Finally, he leaned forward. "Very well. Let us test that conviction of yours." The next day, Victor gathered the staff in the courtyard. Under the morning sun, rows of gleaming cars were parked, each engine purring like a beast waiting to be unleashed. "Today," Victor announced, his deep voice echoing, "you will all accompany me to the city. Spend as you wish. Indulge every desire. I want to see what each of you is made of." The servants cheered. Excitement rippled through the crowd. They climbed into the luxury vehicles like children on a carnival ride. Amara hesitated, her fingers gripping the edge of her apron. "Amara," Victor called. His tone left no room for refusal. "You too." Her heart sank. She nodded quietly and stepped into the sleek black limousine beside him. The city was alive with chaos. Streets brimmed with shoppers, neon signs flickered, and every storefront screamed of luxury. The staff scattered quickly, rushing into boutiques and showrooms with laughter and greed. Their cards swiped endlessly. Shoes, jewels, watches, entire wardrobes. Amara followed Victor silently, her steps small beside his imposing figure. They stopped outside a jewelry store where diamonds glittered like frozen stars. "Go," Victor commanded. "Choose anything?" Amara's breath trembled. She thought of her mother's medicine, her brother's tuition, the rent slipping further behind. Just one necklace, one ring, could cover it all. Her fingers brushed against the card in her pocket. The salesman approached eagerly. "For the young lady, sir? We have the finest pieces." Victor's eyes locked on hers, watching every flicker of hesitation. Amara's lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she stepped back, shaking her head. "No, thank you." The salesman blinked in confusion. Victor's expression darkened, unreadable. They walked on. Every store was the same. Designer gowns, exotic perfumes, cars that gleamed like mirrors. And every time, Victor's command was the same. Buy. And every time, Amara's answer was the same. No. Her chest ached. Her hands trembled. She wanted to scream, to cry, to give in. But something stronger held her back. By the end of the day, the staff returned with their arms full, their laughter echoing. Amara returned empty-handed, her eyes red but her head held high. Victor watched her closely, his jaw tight, his thoughts a storm. That night, in his study, Victor poured himself a glass of whiskey. He stared into the amber liquid, his reflection fractured. "She resists, even when it costs her everything," he murmured to himself. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt something foreign. Respect, but respect was not enough. He needed to know the truth. Why did she refuse? And what, if anything, could ever break her? The mansion no longer felt like home for Amara. It had become a stage, and she, the unwilling actor. Every step she took, every chore she performed, she felt eyes following her. The whispers of jealousy had turned into sharp daggers of hatred. Gregory, Marcus, and David, who once laughed among themselves, now united with one purpose, to bring her down. "She thinks she's better than us," Marcus spat one evening as they gathered in the servants' quarters. "She's trying to make us look like fools," David sneered. Gregory's lips curled into a cruel grin. "Then let's show her place. If she won't fall into temptation, we'll make her look like she already has." The next morning, chaos erupted. Victor stormed into the servants' hall, his face thunderous. In his hand was a receipt, a purchase of $50,000 made with one of his cards. "Jewelry imported extravagant. Who bought this?" His voice roared like a storm. The servants shifted nervously. Then Gregory stepped forward, his eyes flashing with false innocence. "Sir, we all saw Amara leaving the jewelry store yesterday. She was holding a small bag. We thought perhaps she finally gave in." Murmurs filled the room. "Yes, I saw it too." She looked guilty. "She must have used the card." Amara froze. Her blood ran cold. She opened her mouth, but her voice caught in her throat. "No," she whispered hoarsely. "That's not true." Victor's piercing gaze fell on her. "Then explain this." He held up the receipt. Amara's eyes blurred with tears. I refused. Every time I refused. Please, you must believe me." But the servant's mocking smirks told another story. Lies, carefully planted, began to twist like thorns around her truth. Victor's expression was unreadable. He stared at her for a long, heavy moment. Then, to everyone's shock, he said, "Very well. Tonight we shall end this. One final test. If she speaks truth, it will show. If not—" He didn't finish the sentence, but his silence was enough. The servants smirked in triumph. Amara's heart pounded. That evening, the grand hall glittered with chandeliers. A long banquet table was set, gold plates shining beneath candlelight. Every servant was present, their faces expectant, hungry for spectacle. Victor entered, dressed in his finest suit, a man who owned every corner of the room. At the center of the table lay a single velvet box. Inside it sparkled the very necklace from the forged receipt. Its diamonds blazed like fire. Victor's voice was calm but sharp. "Tonight, Amara will decide. Take it." He gestured to the necklace. "And the card is yours forever." Wealth, power, freedom. Your debt's gone, your family secure. No one will ever know. Just take it." The room held its breath. Amara's hands trembled at her sides. Images flashed before her eyes, her mother coughing in her sleep, Jerome's hopeful messages, the landlord's threats. Her chest ached with longing. For one moment, she reached out, her fingers hovering above the velvet box. The servants leaned forward eagerly, their eyes gleaming. Victor's gaze never wavered. He studied her like a hawk, searching for the truth of her soul. Amara's breath hitched. Her tears fell silently onto the polished floor. And then, slowly, she pulled her hand back. Her voice was broken but resolute. "No, if I take this, I lose who I am. My family would eat bread bought with shame. My brother would learn lessons paid with lies. My mother's medicine would taste like poison in her mouth. I cannot." The room erupted in shocked gasps. Marcus sneered. "She's acting. She wants to look holy." Gregory scoffed. "No one refuses diamonds when their family starves." David added coldly, "She's a liar." "Don't trust her." Victor raised his hand. The room silenced instantly. His eyes burned into Amara's. For a moment, even he could not breathe. Then, without a word, Victor opened the velvet box himself. He lifted the necklace and placed it gently back inside, shutting it with a snap. "Enough," he said, his voice low but thunderous. The servants froze. Victor stood, his tall figure casting a shadow across the hall. "You accuse her, yet none of you see the truth. You spend greedily, shamelessly, and call it loyalty. She refuses temptation again and again, even at great cost. And still you call her a liar?" He turned to Amara. "You—" who had every reason to say yes, but still said no. "Tell me, what is it you want?" Amara's tears streamed freely now. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "All I want is to serve with honesty, sir. Nothing more." Her words fell like a blade cutting through the hall. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. For the first time, Victor's hardened expression broke. His eyes softened. Not with pity, but with something he had long forgotten: respect. That night, after the servants were dismissed in shame, Victor stood alone in his study. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across the walls. In his hand, he held Amara's untouched card. He turned it over slowly, the black surface gleaming. "She is different," he murmured to himself. "Unshakable, for the first time in decades." The billionaire who believed money could buy anyone realized there existed a loyalty that could not be bought, a dignity that could not be sold. But one question still lingered in his heart, burning like the fire before him. What could possibly drive a woman like Amara to carry such strength in the face of such pain? And how long before that strength broke? The mansion felt heavier after the test. Whispers no longer carried amusement, but unease. The servants, once smug, now avoided Amara's eyes. They had seen her refusal with their own eyes, yet envy gnawed at them. But Amara carried no triumph, only exhaustion. She returned to her small room, her hands trembling as she folded her blanket. Her mother's weak voice on the phone, Jerome's desperate texts about tuition, the landlord's warning letter, all pressed against her like stones on her chest. She sank to her knees by her bed. For the first time since coming to the estate, she allowed herself to sob freely. "God, give me strength," she whispered, "because I don't know how much longer I can carry this." The next morning, Victor summoned her. She entered his study cautiously. The vast room with its towering bookshelves and polished oak desk always seemed to swallow her. Today, it felt suffocating. Victor sat behind his desk, the black card resting in front of him like a silent judge. His gaze was unreadable. "Amara," he said, his tone quieter than usual. "Sit." She obeyed, folding her hands in her lap to hide the trembling. "I gave all of you those cards," Victor continued, "to test something. To confirm a theory I've lived by all my life, that given wealth without limit, people will always reveal their greed." "And I was right. Almost." His eyes narrowed slightly. "But you broke my rule." Amara lowered her head. "Sir, I never meant to defy you. I only—" Victor raised a hand, silencing her. "Tell me the truth. Why did you not spend?" Her throat tightened. Every instinct told her to remain quiet, to hide her pain. But something in his eyes, perhaps the faintest flicker of humanity, urged her forward. "Because it wasn't mine," she said softly. "And because if I crossed that line, I'd lose myself." Victor leaned forward. "And yet your family suffers. You owe rent. Your brother cannot pay his tuition. Your mother is ill." Amara's head snapped up, eyes wide. "How do you—" Victor's gaze hardened. "I know everything, Amara. I've had you followed. Every phone call, every letter, every sacrifice. You've hidden it from everyone but yourself." "Why?" Her lips quivered. Tears welled up, spilling before she could stop them. "Because their hope depends on me," she whispered. "If I show weakness, they'll give up. My brother, he has a future. My mother has only me. I cannot let them see me fall." The room went silent except for the crackle of the fireplace. Victor, the billionaire who had crushed competitors without blinking, felt something stir inside him, a deep ache he hadn't known in years. But the truth was not finished revealing itself. That evening, Jonathan, Victor's loyal aide, entered the study holding a slim folder. His expression was grim. "Sir, you should see this." Victor opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos. Gregory slipping into Victor's office late at night. Marcus making secret phone calls. David exchanging packages with a stranger at the gate. And at the center, proof of the jewelry purchase, made not by Amara, but by Gregory, using her card when she wasn't watching. Victor's jaw tightened. Rage, hot and controlled, pulsed through him. "Summon them all," he ordered. The servants assembled in the great hall once more. This time, the air buzzed with fear. Victor entered slowly, every step echoing against the marble. His presence filled the room like a storm waiting to break. He stopped at the center and let the silence stretch until it was unbearable. Then he held up the folder. Lies. he said coldly. That is what you offered me. Lies to cover your greed. Lies to destroy the one person among you who held true dignity. Gregory paled. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. David's smirk vanished. Victor's voice thundered. Amara refused wealth again and again, even when she needed it most. And yet you conspired to frame her. You thought me blind? Fools. I see everything. He slammed the folder onto the table. Photos spilled out like accusations. The servants gasped. The evidence was undeniable. Victor's gaze burned into them. Effective immediately, you are dismissed. All of you. Out of my house before dawn. Cries of protest rose, but his voice cut through them like steel. Get out, defeated, the three men slunk away, their dreams of riches shattered. When the hall was empty, only Amara remained, standing small and uncertain beneath the chandeliers. Victor turned to her. For the first time, his voice was not sharp, but steady, almost gentle. You were tested more than anyone, and still you stood firm. Why? Amara met his gaze, tears shining in her eyes. Because my family taught me that dignity is the only wealth no one can steal. If I lost that, I would have nothing left to give them. Victor was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he picked up the black card from his pocket. He turned it over once in his hand before placing it on the table in front of her. This card, he said, means nothing. But you, your honesty, your strength, those are worth more than everything I own. You've reminded me of something I forgot long ago, that real wealth is not money. It is character. He pushed the card toward her. Take it, not as a test, not as a trap, but as a tool. Use it, not for yourself, but for those you love. Pay your rent, fund your brother's education, buy the medicine your mother needs. This time it is a gift. Amara's breath caught. She stared at the card, then back at him. Her hands trembled. I can't, she whispered. Victor's eyes softened. You can, because unlike the others, I know you will never misuse it. Slowly, hesitantly, Amara reached out. This time, the card did not burn her fingers. It felt lighter, not a burden, but a lifeline. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you, sir. You don't know what this means. Victor studied her, and for the first time in years, a small, genuine smile touched his lips. Perhaps I do, he murmured. That night, as Amara sat in her small room, she held her phone close. With trembling hands, she called Jerome. Pay your tuition tomorrow, she said softly. It's handled. Her brother's voice broke with gratitude. Amara, how? What did you... She smiled through her tears. Don't worry about that. Just promise me you'll finish your degree. For both of us. And later, when she called her mother to tell her the medicine would be delivered the next day, the weak, tired voice on the other end whispered a blessing through tears. Amara wept quietly, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Meanwhile, in his study, Victor poured himself a glass of wine. He looked out over the moonlit gardens, the silence of the estate wrapping around him. For decades, he had believed that money ruled all, that wealth revealed truth. But tonight one quiet maid had taught him a greater lesson, that dignity could not be bought, that loyalty could not be sold, and that sometimes the poorest person in the room was richer than the billionaire himself. Victor Hale lifted his glass, whispering softly into the night. To Amara, the wealth I never knew I needed. The fire crackled. The night was still. And for the first time in his life, Victor felt something priceless in his chest. Peace.